This story is about a world of spirits and monsters, in which people can release their soul potential to awaken superpowers within themselves. With the help of them, they can kill demons and destroy everything around them. These are usually called heroes. In this world, every day was not without some kind of incident, because he is crazy. This is Louis, a guy with blue hair and amber eyes, who just woke up in a garbage dump. His hair may be ruined, but not his head. Other victims are strong from the very beginning, but our hero is not like that. He is just trash who was beaten and thrown into the trash. Louis had been handsome for most of his life, so he never expected to shift into such a shameful image. Angered by this image, he seeks revenge. Suddenly, Louis hears strange sounds behind him. Turning around, he notices a man in a suit standing nearby and releasing his knee right onto the wall. Is this world really so low? Suddenly, the man against the wall begins to crack his neck. This worries the main character a little. Turning his neck 180 degrees, the man's gaze fell directly on Louis, and he smelled the smell of fresh human flesh. The young guy was very surprised and frightened by such actions. Meanwhile, distraught, he begins to quickly approach Louis. He thirsts for fresh blood. The main character has been driven into a corner. Now he has nowhere to go. Louis does not understand what is happening. He is scared. The uncle just wants to eat him. The frightened young man does not understand what to do. He screams for help, because he does not want to be eaten. And then suddenly, something cuts the crazed man's neck. It seems that Louis is saved. From a direct hit, the man dies immediately, and the main character sitting in front of him is shocked by what is happening. A beautiful white-haired girl in a red dress and with an umbrella in her hand appeared before him, who greeted him and called him brother. Louis timidly thanked her for saving him. He was surprised at such a beautiful and strong girl. Coming closer to him, the young lady immediately asked if she was beautiful. Louis was taken aback by such straightforwardness, but he couldn't help but notice her beauty and figure, so without hesitation, he replied that she was gorgeous. Laughing at the answer, the girl changed her appearance and asked the same question. The main character was clearly not ready for this image. When he saw her face, he was very scared. Approaching him, holding a weapon in one of her hands, the girl began to pester the hero and waited for an answer to her question. Confused by such actions, Louis didn't know what to say to him. Beautiful will kill, ugly will also kill. But the young lady did not want to wait long and, to speed up the process, she put her weapon to the protagonist's face. And then suddenly time stops. A system panel appears in front of him, on which tasks are written. Now he has a choice: run away, beg for mercy, or kiss the girl. The kiss is rewarded with an S-rank pill. The main character, who has been playing games all his life, decides to choose a kiss in order to get more profit. So, this is his first kiss, but he will do anything to get the pill. He kisses the girl right on the lips and regrets that he gave his first time to such a monster. The embarrassed person, after this, believes that she is now unclean. The girl looks away and blushes. Louis is proud of his actions. When a female demon appears in front of you, use all your love to convince her, so he thinks. Turning away from the young man, the girl, without turning around, moved away from him. When leaving, she only said her name, so our hero learned that her name was Adelaide. She also added that she would definitely return to the kidnapper of her first kiss. After that, under the rustling of leaves, she magically disappeared. The main character was surprised by everything that was happening, but this did not last long, because just a few seconds after Adelaide disappeared, the system window popped up. The time has come for the reward. The S-pill gives him one random superpower, that there is one condition: in order to receive the reward, you must shout and let the thunder strike all the darkness. Standing right in the middle of the street, the main character raises his hand and shouts. Lightning immediately strikes him and fills him with power. Many paid attention to this. They were filled with fear. It seemed to them that the devil was descending from heaven. And only one person was not embarrassed by this. The lady who was covering her face with an umbrella already knew what it was. Now Louis has S-rank power, but since he is still weak, it is not full-fledged. The main character will be able to develop it. Realizing this, the young man went crazy, because he could become invincible. He was already fantasizing about how wonderful his life would be. And then suddenly, destroying all his fantasies, a system window appears, warning him that a powerful demon has been detected nearby. Louis realizes that he is still weak and it is better to avoid clashes with strong demons, so he runs away. After the main character has been pressing on his slippers for half an hour, he finally gets home. Surprised by his appearance, he understands that not everything is so bad in this life. Entering the house, Louis is surprised to be greeted by a sleepy baby. This is his little sister. She notices that his brother looks bad and is sincerely worried about him, asking what happened to him. But Louis doesn't want his youngest to worry about little things and tells her that there is no reason to worry. The worried little girl takes great care of her older brother, and to bring him to his senses she brews him ginger tea. Having taken care of Louis, the youngest goes back to bed. The happy protagonist rejoices at such care. Sitting in the living room, the main character remembers his life. He remembers that he is an adopted son, and also that he has two sisters. Both sisters turned out to be endowed with incredible intelligence and talent to become people. He alone turned out to be trash, who received sarcastic ridicule from people all his life. 3 years ago, the older sister, thanks to her abilities, was chosen to join the superpowers department, so all the care for the younger sister fell on Louis. Remembering his life and drinking the broth, the main character regretted that his past self had treated his sister so badly. And then suddenly screams are heard, which took the main character by surprise. Who dared to interrupt him so suddenly while he was calmly drinking the decoction? Having stood up, he notices a girl not far from him. He remembers that this is his childhood friend, Vanessa. The main character did not understand why she came to his house, and at such an hour. But the girl was serious. She accused him of Louis disgracing her at school this morning. He confessed his love to her through the loudspeaker. He didn't understand what was happening. Now he didn't care about Vanessa. All his thoughts were occupied with the fact that the declaration of love and his murder could be somehow connected. To make the girl fall behind, Louis began to act like a fool, which made Vanessa furious. Now she has moved from words to actions and decides to kick the main character. Louis was clearly not prepared for this. He was stunned and is now trying to defend himself. While dodging the blow, the main character notices the panties of a horse dealer. They were white with a red bow. This simply could not help but confuse our heroes. The indignant Vanessa blames Louis for this incident, and Louis, on the contrary, says that she made him look there. Now the girl is not just ready to beat the guy, she intends to kill him. Suddenly, the little girl bursts into this fight. She fiercely defends her older brother and stops Vanessa. Stepping back, standing directly in front of the little girl, Vanessa says only that she has no intention of stooping to the child's level. As she leaves, the girl reminds the main character that tomorrow is aptitude test day and that students with an S-class rank can enter Lotus Academy. Vanessa has long awakened the ability of an A-class. For people like her, all paths are open. Louis is outraged by his friend's impudent behavior. She doesn't yet know that he has awakened an S-class ability. And here again a system window appears in front of the main character with options for answering Vanessa. Each of them gives a certain number of characteristics. This time Louis is not guided by the logic of greater profit. He decides to choose the third option, the essence of which was an oath that he would awaken the ability. Then he calls out to the girl and shouts after her that he will not only awaken the ability, but will also enter the academy, which Vanessa was only surprised by. Filled with confidence, the protagonist is not only proud of himself, but also admires how pathetic he sounded at that moment. But the girl didn't care at all. She just continued on her way, because she didn't believe a single word the guy said. The little girl standing next to her brother encouraged him, because she believed that Louis would awaken his ability. It was deep night. The main character was already sleeping soundly with the window wide open. At that moment, someone snuck into his room and came right up to his face. Adelaide found him, because he stole her first kiss. Now he will have to take responsibility for it. A new day has arrived, the day of the aptitude test. The baby accompanies her brother and supports him in every possible way, so she is the concern of the younger sister. Being late, the main character rushes at the speed of light. He cannot be late on this important day for him. While finishing his breakfast on the way, Louis remembers last night, because he had a strange feeling, as if he was sleeping with some girl, and everything was so realistic in a dream. Finally he got to school. The main character made it on time and was not late. The aptitude test begins. The examiners try to calm the crowd of students, but they fail because everyone is excited. Among all this crowd, the main character is trying to squeeze through. He grabs the shoulder of the young man standing next to him and calls out to him, wondering if he has arrived exactly where he should. The guy, outraged by such impudence, shouts at Louis and pushes him aside. Having calmed down a little, the young man recognized our hero. He was extremely surprised that he was even here. Having examined the guy's face in a little more detail, he remembers him. This is Mark, a kind of rival of Louis, because they both liked Vanessa. And then suddenly the examiner announces that it is time for the aptitude test. He asks everyone to take this seriously. So, the first student is called onto the stage. He is very worried and does not want to embarrass himself. Coming closer, he sees a nearby stand on which lies a blue ball. Having touched the ball, he is very nervous, because his whole life will be determined by what ability he has. So, his ability is F rank, frying pan. He failed the exam, now everyone will consider him useless trash. Thus, many lives were ruined. It's Mark's turn, the crowd favorite. Everyone is eager to find out what his ability is. The ball determined the ability of this young man. It turned out to be an A-class ability, a hellhound. No one was surprised by this, because they considered the guy extremely talented. The time has come for our hero to test his strength. Lewis confidently takes the stage and goes towards his destiny. Everyone who watched laughed at the main character, because they considered him mediocre. They thought that he came for the sake of laughter. But Lewis was only glad of such attention. He believed that society looked at him like that because he was handsome. The observing examiner, who was at a distance from the main character, clarified the situation. Everyone looked at him like that because the young man's fly was unbuttoned. This situation made the hero embarrassed. Having corrected the situation, the embarrassed Lewis collected his thoughts. The main thing is not the fly, the main thing is the ability, so he thought. The moment of truth, the main character was confident in himself, so without any doubt, he touched the ball. Everyone was surprised, they couldn't believe their eyes. After all, the young man showed not an S rank, but the weakest FFF rank, but the confident hero only made a face and didn't even look at his rank. FFF rank, an ability the use of which was unknown even to the examiner. Those watching around were dying of laughter, and the poor young man was so surprised that he didn't even believe what was happening. Mark was indescribably happy about this. Lewis did not disappoint him, and Vanessa, who was watching this exam, just lowered her head down. The main character could not believe it, because he gave his best. Disappointed in himself, he sank down. The demoness Adelaide appears to help her lover. With the appearance of the girl, the boy's strength begins to grow sharply. The examiner is amazed at this change of circumstances. This is a completely new record. Lewis's rank is now not FFF, but S. Owners of such strength, with due diligence, can reach A-class, or even higher. Vanessa was happy about this. Finally a smile appeared on her face. Mark couldn't check what was happening. He believed that the main character was cheating. Having learned about his new rank, Lewis began to rejoice so much that he did not hear what the examiner was telling him. The hero has passed the first stage of the ability test, now the second stage is ahead. Standing near his locker, the main character was looking for something in it. At that moment Mark comes up to him and with a grin on his face, says that even if he passed the first stage, it still doesn't mean anything. But the main character only turned around and made a face. He felt envy in his rival's words, which made it even more fun for him to provoke Mark. The blond young man could not stand it and, out of emotion, grabbed Lewis by the t-shirt and pulled him towards him, because who would envy such trash? And again, a system window appears in front of the main character with a choice of actions: ignore, screw up, or resolve everything amicably. Lewis didn't think twice and immediately hit the instigator. The blow was so strong that Mark was immediately knocked out, losing a couple of teeth. The beaten young man, finding himself on the floor, only screamed about how some kind of garbage could touch him. Suddenly a girl intervenes in their quarrel. She stops the boys and asks them to calm down. She also reports that the second stage will begin soon. They need to follow her. They are going to the site of the second stage. Looking at the girl, Lewis's gaze fell on the chevron with the dragon emblem, which meant that she was from the Lotus Academy. During the trip to the venue, they find out that the girl with blue hair is named Leslie, and also that she is the second stage examiner. She informs them that those who pass the second stage will be able to immediately enter the academy. Those who pass further will become official students. But the main character has no time for her words at all. He admires Leslie's beautiful figure. Noticing this, the girl turns around and looks at Lewis with a furious look, which makes the young man begin to tremble. Entering a tunnel, the driver notices a flock of bats flying straight towards the bus. The man behind the wheel loses control and the bus falls. This accident capsized all the buses following the first one, and now their path is blocked. Covered in bruises, Lewis climbs out through the bus window. He doesn't understand what happened. Raising his gaze upward, the main character turns his attention to the bats, where they all come from. Even Leslie didn't understand where the monsters were coming from. she was very surprised by the incident. Rushing immediately into battle, she gave the command to her students to kill all the monsters. Lewis notices that something is wrong here, since everyone just rushed into battle at once, but Mark, standing next to him, wanted to take revenge on the main character, so he decided to take advantage of the moment. Having caught the bat with one hand, the blonde guy then throws it at the main character. Lewis is surprised by the guy's sudden attack. He cannot fight her off and immediately falls to the ground. Approaching, Mark tears the small monster into pieces and shows hostility towards Lewis with all his appearance. While the guys sort things out, Leslie easily copes with the monsters. Thanks to the examiner, everyone remained safe and sound. All the students were sincerely happy about their victory over the monsters. Self-confident Mark stood proudly next to Lewis. He had just finished warming up, and the fight was already over. But then a loud sound was heard. The students did not understand what was happening, an earthquake. From the ground, and Lewis, looking at all this, was afraid that this was an attack. The chain wrapped around the leg, the main character and the other students, and lifted them up. Everyone was confused and scared. They called for help. A man in a mask and on a motorcycle suddenly appeared, clarified the situation. Now they are hostages. Having lost consciousness, Adelaide suddenly came to his dream. She came so close to him that the main character lost his mind, from which he immediately began to take the initiative into his own hands and push in with a kiss, which outraged the demoness. Having assumed her second form, she immediately revived Lewis and sent him into battle. Unprepared for such a quick change of appearance, the main character, his eyes bulging, quickly comes to his senses. Now he will have to fight with the racer to save his partners. Lewis gets up and uses his ability. His nearby comrades did not believe that he could save them, but the racer was only pleased with the young man's courage. Having started the fight with a chain swing, the rider hoped to win from the first blow, because in front of him was a clear weakling. Lewis, on the other hand, easily grabbed his opponent's chain and smiled. The enemy was stunned by the guy's actions and the ease with which he grabbed the chain. Holding his opponent's weapon, he pulled him towards him. It was time to end the fight. Lewis throws his opponent straight into the rock and he falls unconscious. Everyone around was amazed at the strength of the main character. They didn't even think that he was so strong. It would seem that everything is over, but the battle has just begun. The racer gets up and with a satisfied face, praises the young man. Once on his bike, the rider accelerates and attacks Lewis again, interested in testing his abilities. He confidently knocks the main character down and he falls to the ground. While the racer's attention was focused on Lewis, Leslie breaks the chains and frees herself. Now she enters the fight. At this time, Lewis clings to the rider and gets on his bike, which he is clearly not happy about. Leslie does not waste time and at this moment attacks the enemy. It deals critical damage to the rider who attacked them and he falls off the bike. The enemy then decides to self-destruct to kill them. The examiner notices the strange actions of the enemy and tries to save Lewis, pushing him into the distance so that he is not hit by the explosion. The explosion was so huge that it raised all the dust around. Our heroes were not visible. No one knew if they were okay. After some time, among all this dust, the silhouettes of Leslie and Lewis became visible. They survived. All wounded but alive, they managed to escape and avoid tragedy. Even in such a situation, the main character does not stop joking and offers Leslie his services as a massage therapist, which she is clearly not happy about. Watching Lewis being praised, Mark became furious. He didn't understand where the young man got such strength. And then, while praising the girls, a system window appears in front of the main character. It notifies about the completion of the task and receipt of the reward. Raising my head up, I notice a drone all around, which has been watching the progress of the battle all this time. The second stage was aimed at testing practical skills, which our hero successfully completed. Even the examiner didn't know this, which is what actually angered Leslie. The drone also noted the student who scored the most points. It was Lewis, who stood so modestly among the girls. The students not only rejoiced at this, they picked up the main character and began to throw him up, recognizing him as the best. Leslie is also proud of Lewis. She is sure that in the future he will shake the entire academy. Finally, all the exams are over and the main character returns home. A joyful little girl meets her brother. She is sure that everything worked out for him. Patting his youngest on the head, Lewis tells her the good news, because he not only passed the exam, but also entered the Lotus Academy. But the little girl watching her is a little upset, because now her brother will leave the house. She doesn't show it, and advises her brother to have a good rest, and also tell her big sister the great news. Arriving in his room, Lewis immediately calls his sister and tells her that he has entered the academy. While on her next assignment, she congratulates the main character on his admission. Their conversation did not last long, because she still has things to do. Lounging on the bed, the young man closes his eyes. He is tired and wants to rest. He begins to feel dizzy, and then a demoness appears, who takes a seductive pose, which blows our hero's mind away. Sitting right in front of him, she says that she can help increase Lewis's strength, but he has to promise her something. The main character must marry her. Lewis is very surprised by these words and cannot believe them. After all, he is not the type to marry someone. First you need to take a walk, get to know him better. But Adelaide can't stand it anymore. She's exhausted and wants a young man. Then the demoness concludes a bloody contract without Lewis's agreement. Now they are connected and the marriage is concluded. After concluding the contract, the main character sees all of Adelaide's memories from the past world. A new day came. The young man was so tired that he even skipped dinner. Standing right in front of her brother's door, the little girl wakes him up and calls him to have breakfast. Lewis wakes up, and his first thoughts were about Adelaide, where she disappeared to, because today is their wedding night. And today is the first day of training at the academy. He still has to say goodbye to his little sister. The little girl is very upset that her brother is leaving. She doesn't want to let him go. The older brother is trying to cheer her up, because he is not leaving forever. Lewis will come during the holidays. Sitting right in front of her, the main character reassures the little girl, he will definitely return to her. Time is running out, and the driver is already calling out to the guy, forcing him to hurry up. After saying goodbye to his sister and leaving for the academy, Lewis waves goodbye to her and asks her to take care of herself. But a plan was already forming in the little girl's head. She couldn't wait for her brother, she had to go after him herself, so she decided. And now the first day of training at the Lotus Academy has arrived. Standing right in front of the academy, Lewis is amazed by the appearance and size of the building. But the most important thing for him is how many beauties there are. Having become daydreaming, Lewis remembers that first he needs to report his arrival. At this time, in the hall of applicants, a small conflict is brewing, because the red-haired madam already intends to take the most outstanding freshman for herself. Many were unhappy with this, but the young lady was not going to give in, because whoever has boobs is right, and she had them not small. At this moment Lewis appears. He was named and immediately everyone turned their attention to the main character. Everyone wanted to get the best first-year student, so when they saw him, they immediately rushed to him. They wanted him to become their student, so they offered him not only their mentoring abilities, but also additional services. Tearing him into pieces, they did not allow the young man to breathe, but the young lady standing aside already knew that Lewis belonged to her. While others were engaged in personal showdowns, the red-haired young lady approached Lewis and called out to him. She invites him to become her student. The main character immediately turned his attention to her forms. The angry teachers immediately noticed how Leona was luring the freshman to her. But a confident mentor advised not to listen to old farts. Lewis immediately listened to Madam. He was already hers. Unfastening a couple of buttons, Leona exposed her breasts a little and then she listed all the advantages of becoming her student. Everyone around was amazed. This appearance of the teacher only excited them. Vulgar thoughts filled their heads, and blood flowed from their nose in a stream. The indignant mentors were unhappy with such a secret technique, but admitted defeat. Lewis no longer just agreed, he prayed that she would take him as her student. Meanwhile, happy Leona only apologized to her colleagues. Walking closer to her new student, she kissed his forehead and asked him not to disappoint her. After all, if he does not live up to her hopes, she will tear him one beautiful place, so intimidating her student, she left him. Mark watched all this from afar. He was already overwhelmed with a feeling of envy and hatred. After the distribution, Lewis headed to the dormitory. The house looked great, everything suited him. The main character was already dreaming about how he would take various beauties to this house. At this moment, Lewis notices an unfamiliar guy who is trying to attract his attention. This is his eldest, Bob, and according to the teacher's orders, he will advise him. Coming closer, the guys get to know each other. Bob asks Lewis not to address him formally. He allows them to just call him Fatty. Their conversation smoothly flows into a discussion of Leona. They both understand that she is a weapon of mass destruction. The fat man quickly finds a common language with Lewis and assumes that he agreed after her seduction. The main character is a little upset by Bob's such knowledge. It seems that she lures everyone in this way. Bob was also fooled in a similar way. so he immediately tells Lewis that he was duped like a sucker. The main character is perplexed whether his mentor is really so insidious. According to the fat man, Leona's nickname, a witch, and the special position she promised in reality are a nightmare. Shocked by such a story, Lewis could not believe Bob's words, because he was fascinated by her. But the main character still didn't believe what was said. He was sure that everything would be fine. Bob just grinned and returned to the hostel. Mark still couldn't calm down. Once in his grandfather's office, he provided information about Lewis. The young guy was very concerned that the main character was always undermining and harming his authority, but the grandfather calmly listened to Mark and said that he would sort out the situation. He will help his granddaughter reign in the upstart. Now Lewis faces difficult tests to see if he can cope with them. Meanwhile, Lewis was calmly relaxing in the dormitory bath and already enjoying his new life. But suddenly, his calm was broken by the gentle hand of a girl who suddenly appeared and touched his chest. The main character was extremely surprised by this appearance of his wife. He did not understand where she came from. Did she really live right in him? Sitting down on the edge of the bathtub, Adelaide explained that in fact it was true. She lives in the spiritual world of Lewis. The spiritual world is a space created from hidden spiritual energy, and the protagonist's world is simply huge. It's a pity that Lewis's combined strength is weak, so it won't be possible to use the spiritual one. Approaching the young man, Adelaide begins to flirt with him more and more, because she so likes his spiritual world. Without thinking for long, Lewis remembered his wedding night, the time to pour his spiritual energy into Adelaide, which made the girl just laugh. And it was at this moment, when the main character was already in a mood, someone knocked on the door. To check who prevented him from enjoying a wonderful time, Lewis immediately opened the door all the way and began to look around. A hollow naked young man looks around and does not notice how someone is already closely watching him in the bushes. And then someone or something flies into the hostel at the speed of light. The young man did not even have time to see who burst into his abode. After waiting for some time, he was surprised that some ferret was in his room. Not understanding what he was doing here, he continued to watch him. The main character was outraged by this appearance of a yellow ferret. According to legend, he appears and asks questions in order to take on his true appearance. It seems that the animal was just waiting for Lewis to lower his guard, so as soon as he noticed this, he immediately set his sights on the half-naked guy. An unexpected attack from a cute ferret, who immediately released his fangs to harm the young man. But not everything is so simple, because he is protected by his wife, who is not just a dangerous woman, but a demoness. The attack failed. Adelaide, who intervened, calmly walked towards the ferret to finish off the ferret. Lewis was not so cruel, so he immediately tried to stop his beloved, not understanding how such a thing could slip out of his mouth. Adelaide, who grew fat from such words, immediately calmed down and turned her attention to her beloved hubby. Lewis didn't want to just kill the person who broke into the house. He was already thinking about how to have fun with him and whether to cook him for dinner. The ferret stood aside and listened to everything that the main character was saying. He was shocked by Lewis's words and was already thinking about how to escape. 10 minutes later, the lovely guest was already tied up with a secret technique and was preparing to be eaten. The ferret was extremely dissatisfied with such hospitality, but the young man who was already sharpening a knife did not care, and the demoness standing nearby was already putting on an apron. As they say, husband and wife are one Satan. Then, in order to reassure his guest, Lewis made a serious face and decided to begin the interrogation, but the ferret did not want to give up. He was stubborn. Since the ferret did not want to give up, the main character also did not give up in his desire to have dinner with him, so calling his beloved, they continued preparing to butcher the animal. But with this attitude of the heroes, the ferret's fortitude broke. He admitted that Mark's grandfather had sent him. Lewis was amazed by this news. And again, a system window appeared before the hero's eyes, which provided him with a choice of 3 options for the development of events. One of the options was to let the ferret go. The reward in it was very attractive, S-class pill. The main character was attracted by such a reward, so he chose it without hesitation. Lewis unties the animal and sets it free. The ferret is flattered by such generosity, to the point of tears. The noble hero says goodbye to the yellow ferret and watches it quickly run away from his house. The system window appeared in front of the main character again. Now it notified the completion of the task. The satisfied guy can now calmly stop pretending to be pretty. So, the ferret had not yet managed to escape, but the task had already been counted, so the main character immediately rushed to the exit and took the guest by surprise. The frightened yellow ferret did not understand what was happening, because he believed that Lewis had already let him go, but that was not the case. The happy young man explained to the guest that, yes, he had let him go and immediately changed his mind, the poor ferret would still be allowed to be eaten today. Unable to withstand such tension, the yellow ferret already fainted. Lewis and Adelaide only quietly watched on the sidelines. Watching this, the main character came up with a much better idea than before, so beautiful that the smile did not leave his face. Waking up the very next day, the ferret was shocked by the fact that upon awakening he found himself tied up. Grief did not let him go, he lived more than half of his life free, and some kid turned him into a watchdog. He couldn't believe it. While the protagonist's new dog was roaring under the window, Lewis was sleeping calmly in bed with his wife. Looking at his betrothed, he remembered the evening, after taking the C-class pill, he had a fever, so Adelaide took care of him all night. Looking at her with a grin, he thought that having a wife who was so curvy wasn't so bad. Lewis was already thinking about touching Adelaide's soft skin, but at that moment she woke up, he immediately removed his hands, embarrassed. Even in the morning, Adelaide is beautiful, she slightly covered her body with a sheet and sat down on the bed. The main character could not stand such a sight, so he immediately switched his attention to the effect of the pill. Now he was literally overwhelmed with power. Sitting on the bed wearing only a sheet, Adelaide didn't understand where Lewis got the pill from, she was worried about him. After all, this time it was she who helped the young man absorb part of the power of the pill through cultivation. In order to do this on his own, he needs to raise his strength to S rank. The young man was filled with enthusiasm, he wanted to completely absorb the power of the pill as soon as possible. Lewis, standing right in front of Adelaide, asked Adelaide to train him, but it was not that simple, she was very stubborn. Then the young man used the secret technique of all men, he began to cajole sweet Adelaide, which only made the girl embarrassed. Adelaide could not resist, the young lady was not indignant for long, and told him about the technique for enhancing the ability. S-rank pill gave the main character the ability to wash muscles and bones. In order to quickly master it, he would have to constantly receive physical pain. On this sunny day, the welcoming ceremony for the freshmen also took place, everyone sequentially entered the field. Lewis didn't look happy, he didn't want to believe Adelaide's words, so he thought about it all this time. Then Bob suddenly appeared. He noticed the gloomy expression on Lewis's face and immediately asked why he was so upset. But the main character did not want to show it and explained everything by saying that too much attention was paid to him. Having met Leona at the ceremony, the young man immediately greeted his mentor. She was surprised that he had come. The teacher immediately introduced Lewis to his seniors, the girl on the left is Iris, and the guy on the right is Ethan. And also Leslie, she is also his eldest. The indignant girl immediately noticed that Lewis was late on his first day. But the young guy didn't care about Leslie's words, his gaze was focused only on her figure. The young maiden was outraged by the young man's concern, so she tried in every possible way to rein him in, but she failed. Suddenly, Iris approaches her, she tries to calm Leslie, but everything is in vain, because the girl was on edge. At this time, Lewis simply continued to provoke his eldest, causing her to become furious. Continuing to dodge Leslie's attacks, suddenly the main character bumps into something very soft and elastic. It was the teacher's chest, moving a little away from her. The teacher notes that Lewis is moving well. She immediately reports that she found out a little about her new student. Leona was surprised by the fact that Lewis is the son of a famous hero. Everyone standing nearby was extremely surprised to hear this fact. They did not expect that they would study with the son of the strongest man. Lewis was shocked that so many people knew about his adoptive father, because he himself had only cloudy memories of him. At that moment Vanessa, standing next to him, only watched the main character with displeasure. She didn't understand how Lewis could become stronger in such a short time, or what methods his mentor used. While the main character was talking with the mentor, Mark was furious that his plan had failed. He thirsted for revenge. Finally, the ceremony was announced and the deputy director made a congratulatory speech. After the speech, he invites the outstanding freshmen to the stage for the presentation of personal emblems and an opening speech. Lewis did not understand what was happening, because this was the first time for him, but the fat man was already experienced and therefore generously explained to the main character what kind of emblems were presented. Bob shows his medal. The young man turned out to be not only a good guy, but also a capable student. The time for the opening speech has come. Vanessa is the first to take the stage. she is the representative of the first group and the best student. The representative of the second group turned out to be Mark, he is also the best student. The main character was still waiting to be called on stage, because he considered himself outstanding. And now the time has come, Lewis is called to the stage as a representative of the third group, but then the system window pops up in front of the guy's eyes again. Lewis walks confidently up onto the stage and ponders which option he should choose from the ones offered by the system. So, he decided to give a positive speech and will receive a +5 to charm as a reward. The main character makes his speech in front of his classmates in which he says that he is not worthy of the title of the strongest of the group. Vanessa, who was standing in the front row at that time, did not understand what the young man was saying. Everyone was shocked by such a speech. But the young man could not be stopped, he was so inspired that he even began to cry, because he sincerely considered himself weak and unworthy. The main character finished his speech and bowed, many at that moment supported the young man, they thought he was cool. Vanessa was confused by such a speech, did she really underestimate him, and Mark standing next to her began to hate Lewis more and more. As soon as Lewis received his award, he immediately announced that all of the above was a lie, everyone present was worthless, and he alone was the best. Everyone was immediately confused, no one expected to hear something like this after such a speech. Lewis didn't care about this in any way, he was happy, not yet on stage, the main thing for him was to complete the task and receive the reward. Coming off the stage, the main character was already ready for his angry classmates, he was waiting for a fight to start. But the elders stood up to protect their youngest, they would not give offense to the young man, which Lewis was extremely surprised by, it seems that his plan failed. Lewis is unhappy with this development, because his plan was to experience physical pain and improve his skill. The elders noticed Lewis's displeasure, making a face, they let him know that their mercy had changed to anger. So a storm broke out, in which Lewis was thoroughly beaten, and Vanessa, standing next to him, did not even want to look at it. Mark, on the contrary, relaxed, because this is what he wanted to achieve. Leona just watched everything that was happening, she compared him with his father, only Lewis deliberately took the blows. The main character continued to provoke everyone around him, but, unfortunately, no one was interested in him anymore. Lewis was defeated, he was disappointed that no one else wanted to pay attention to him. Seeing Lewis in such despair, Adelaide appears and tries to calm him down, but everything is in vain, because the main character was serious about absorbing the full power of the pill. But the main character does not lose faith in himself, because the sun is still high, which means everything will work out. Adelaide is glad for her husband's optimism, but is a little amazed. Many were dissatisfied with such optimism of the hero, they so wanted to beat this joyful fool, but they restrained their desire. Sitting on the bench, Lewis was disappointed by the fact that in our time it is difficult to even get punches. Hearing the sad tone of the main character, the young man standing next to him gave him advice. To get cuffs, Lewis only needs to confess his love to one of the 4 beauties of the academy. Our hero, a brave guy, having now learned how to receive hatred from his classmates, nothing will stop him, which Adelaide is not happy about. The man said, the man did, then the main character sent a message to the academy chat, in which he confessed his feelings to one of the beauties. The demoness watching this was furious, but kept herself in control. The young man, holding his phone in his hands, was sincerely happy that he instantly received angry reactions, now his plan will be brought to life. We didn't have to wait long for action to provoke Lewis. After a few seconds, a crowd of angry fans of one of the beauties immediately headed towards him. The crowd not only headed towards the young man, the guys armed themselves and, arriving in anger, were already preparing to attack. Lewis did not expect so many people, and even armed ones, he was stunned by what was happening. Adelaide was also shocked by such a crowd, so immediately noticing the crowd, she decided to return to the spiritual world. The main character was successfully beaten, both painfully and pleasantly, now he is satisfied, because his plan was successful. But this was not enough for the beauty's fans, they were not going to stop, now they will teach the upstart a good lesson. Suddenly, Leon's mentor comes to the defense of her student and stops the massacre. Everyone around is stunned by the teacher's appearance. Seeing Leona's angry face, the beauty's frightened fans immediately ran away. The mentor quickly saw through Lewis, she understood that he was deliberately provoking his classmates, but the young man did not show that this was so. Looking at her beaten student, Leona also tells him the news that a spiritual source will soon open at the academy, but the main character still does not understand what it is. Then the mentor explained to the young man that the spiritual source is a place in which it is possible to become stronger. Leona did her best to give Louis a chance to become stronger. Now he is her debtor, and the time has come for the promised special position. The main character was incredibly happy about this news. His head was already filled with various thoughts, causing blood to flow from his nose. The special position meant special training from Leona, for which Louis was clearly not ready. Devilish trials awaited Louis under the strict guidance of his mentor. He steadfastly followed all her orders. Ethan, who were watching this, just grinned at poor Louis. They were in this guy's place, because they also fell for the special position. The mentor sensitively trained her student, using different methods of developing the body. From such varied training, Louis was already beginning to think about death. Not everyone could withstand such tests. In the evening, the main character was so exhausted that he could not get up, but this did not stop Leona, because in her opinion, a man cannot speak, I cannot. But after lighting a cigarette, the mentor decided to allow the young man to take a break. At that moment she decided to tell him about his father. 10 years ago, countless monsters attacked the city. Humanity found itself in unprecedented danger. Louis's father came out with his squad to protect the citizens. They fought without sparing their bellies. There were too many monsters, so many members of the squad died that day, including the father of the main character. The young man did not even know that his father died defending humanity. This aroused a feeling of pride in him, even though he was just a loser. Leona's story, the main character decided that he would protect this world at the cost of his life. After that, he was confidently determined to continue his mentor's hard training, which Leona was extremely surprised by. While the main character was training hard, a plan to expel Louis was discussed in the deputy director's office. His new rival, Joseph, was also pretty dissatisfied with the behavior of the protagonist. The deputy director announced a reward of 1,000 spiritual stones for Joseph to deal with Louis. The guy was confident in himself, so he assured the deputy that he would certainly cope with the main character. After this, the young man leaves with thoughts about his reward. He was already thinking about how he would dispose of it. The day has come when a spiritual source will be revealed to the students. The main character is in a hurry so as not to be late. He says goodbye to Adelaide, who, already like a true wife, sees off her husband. The young man was confident in his abilities and that he would certainly cope with all the tests, because all these days he had been training hard. On the way, he meets his pet, who at that time was sleeping soundly. The yellow ferret no longer resisted and accepted his fate. Louis noticed that his pet was not eating well, so he decided to wake him up and tease him. The ferret was dissatisfied with this behavior of the owner, and Louis, meanwhile, continued to tease the pet with food. Without thinking twice, the pet immediately succumbed to the protagonist's provocations and began to devour a piece of chicken. Holding a chicken leg by his cheek, the ferret asks the owner to be careful these days, because the unknown may await him during the tests. The young man thanked the pet for his troubles and joyfully walked forward, but the ferret was angry at such careless behavior of the owner. And now everyone has arrived at the cultivation site, a spiritual source, a place of testing, is presented to you. All those present were surprised by the place. None of them could have imagined that such a natural place was adjacent to the city. The time for testing is almost here, before which Leona explains that each student has 500 stones in their emblem. This is a gift from the academy and they must be used wisely. Louis didn't know about them yet, so he asks Bob, but the fat man explains that they are needed to release spiritual power, and they can also be used as currency. As soon as the source was opened, everyone rushed forward, because they still need to take a place. Leslie also didn't want to lag behind. She needed to take good places. Everyone in the group supported her and went forward. Leona kindly sends Louis on his way and wishes him a speedy return. The main character is very happy about such a sweet behavior of his mentor, but his wife begins to be very jealous. The fat man is also jealous of such female attention. Having reached the place, a cave filled with water appeared in front of them. Everyone was shocked by such beauty. Bob was not going to stay with the guys for a long time, and as soon as the opportunity arose, he left them. Louis was outraged by his friend's behavior. He didn't even have time to find out which source he should take. Left alone, the main character notices that Mark is standing nearby with some suspicious guy. The young man didn't care much about this. He was more concerned about the fact that he didn't know where to go. Apparently intuition was starting the show. Walking a little forward, Louis notices large and strong wooden doors. he assumes that something special is hidden behind them. His head is filled with thoughts of indescribable power. Without thinking for long, he immediately bursts into a closed room. Having abruptly burst into the room, the main character sees only naked girls, who were taken by surprise by Louis's appearance. But the young man was not at all embarrassed, he just raised his finger up, thereby showing how beautiful the girls were. Embarrassed, the girls still recognized him as a hero who was able to confess to one of the beauties of the school. And again, a system window appears in front of the main character, which offers him a choice of 3 options for the development of events. The young man did not hesitate for long and chose the second option, to organize an aqua disco. He was not at all embarrassed by the girls, he wanted to enjoy the moment. Before he even had time to be in the water, the ladies immediately kicked him out of their room. Louis flew further than he could see. Joseph, who stood nearby, only watched what was happening. Joseph did not understand what was happening, because Louis flew out of the room of the first beauty of the academy. Now he was filled with a feeling of envy. He also wanted to see the girl naked. After some time, the main character finally found a free source. He did not regret the time spent, he liked the girl's shapes. Having undressed, the young man sank into the source. He was filled with rather dense energy, but he enjoyed it. After what happened, Adelaide's appearance was to be expected. She immediately began to be indignant, because she was very jealous. The young man was not ready for this and did not know how to react to jealousy. Adelaide decided to teach her unfaithful husband a lesson by biting him right on the neck, at which point Louis experienced pain from his wife's severe bite. Having experienced a feeling of pain, the main character did not think that his beloved was so jealous. But an unexpected explosion interrupted his internal monologue. Louis was not prepared for the unexpected attack. Joseph broke through the wall to catch the young man by surprise. He wanted to quickly complete the mission and deal with him. Louis was not prepared for the sudden attack. He did not understand what this guy left in his room and why he was so disgusted with him. But this did not stop Joseph at all. Releasing his claws and using force, he began to attack the main character. The main character was shocked by Joseph's sudden attack, but was able to dodge it. The guy's blow was so strong that the floor could not stand it and collapsed. This confused the main character, but he stood firmly on his feet. Suddenly, something began to pull them inside. It turned out that there was some other unknown force under the source. Falling down, Louis manages to grab the edge, but Joseph will not let him hold on. Grabbing the main character by the leg, he holds on tightly to him. The young man does not have enough strength to hold on to the edge of the cliff and they both fall into the abyss. Joseph, in an attempt to teach Louis a lesson for peeping, quickly falls to the bottom of a spiritual spring, broken due to an unsuccessful attack, and rejoices at the successfully completed mission. Louis, taken by surprise by the unexpected attack, quickly flies into the abyss. Like a faithful companion, Adelaide follows him. Having overcome the expanse of water, Louis and Joseph are rapidly approaching the land hidden behind the depths of a spiritual source. Joseph is caught off guard by the unexpected, hard and heavy landing, and as he watches Louis, he curses the latter for boasting of an unusually beautiful and useful wife. Adelaide catches Louis in the air, preventing him from falling. She saves him and gently chides him for gloating over the broken and helpless Joseph. The heroes look around, trying to get their bearings. Adelaide is perplexed by the view. Louis invites her to take a walk. Adelaide lowers herself to the ground with Louis to get a better look at the area, but what first catches her eye is the prone form of Joseph. Louis bends over the body of the defeated enemy to check his breathing and realizes that Joseph could not survive the fall from such a height. Adelaide inquires about Louis's well-being, to which he does not show any regret, only noting that Joseph ended up in a grave that he himself dug in an attempt to kill another person. Louis decides to take Joseph's things so that he can rest in peace and do good service to himself, albeit in the afterlife. Adelaide praises him for his ingenuity and insight. As a result of examining Joseph's body, Louis finds spiritual stones in the pockets of his suit and rejoices at his unexpected luck. Adelaide notices that the local atmosphere is teeming with the energy of other demons. Louis is inspired, hoping to see the same charming creatures as his wife. Adelaide, in a fit of anger, pinches Louis, severely reprimanding him for untimely fantasies. The area is teeming with the most dangerous demonic creatures. After Adelaide explains to Louis the danger of the situation, they both freeze at the edge of the forest when they hear sinister laughter. A ball quickly jumps out of the bushes right at Louis's feet, and he picks it up to get a better look. Immediately after this, two little demons appear in front of the heroes, engulfed in flames, and impudently demand to teach them how to play ball, threatening to kill them if they refuse. Lewis curses in horror at the sight of them. A system window for selecting 3 options pops up in front of the hero. He reads them and decides to teach the little devils how to play ball. Lewis, swinging heavily, hits the ball with his right foot, sending it straight into the face of one of the imps with lightning speed. The young man rejoices at accurately hitting the target. Adelaide praises him, while the little demon falls to the ground without moving. The second imp bursts into tears and screams about the human invasion of their territory, blaming Lewis for the death of his fellow. Adelaide warns the hero that the little evil spirit is calling other demonic creatures for help and offers to leave as soon as possible, but the young man assures her that everything is going according to plan. At the call of the demon, a whole crowd of evil spirits comes running. They begin to aggressively search for the culprit in the death of their smaller brother. Lewis, without a twinge of conscience, angers a group of angry demonic creatures, who zealously attack the hero en masse, trying to crush him in numbers. The hero finds himself surrounded by a crowd of evil spirits, actively beating him in an attempt to kill him. Realizing that the usual combat attacks are not working, the demons decide to eat Lewis, finding his ability to remain unharmed when attacked useful. Who had previously been standing aside from what was happening, realizes that her husband's plan is out of control and decides to rush to Lewis's aid. She does not have time to enter the battle. The hero has already pushed away the demons surrounding him with spiritual radiance. Lewis rejoices at his new S-rank body and asks his wife to follow him into battle to destroy all enemies. Adelaide happily agrees. The demoness zealously cuts her fellow tribesmen into pieces, wielding a scarlet sword, fighting side by side with her husband. The hero feels the full power of the newly acquired body, noting the amazing sensitivity in heat, similar to the heat from an eternally reborn phoenix. Following Adelaide, Lewis senses the aura of a high-class evildoer, perhaps even a demon king, and is afraid of her. The demoness decides to first take her husband out of the spiritual world in order to protect him from danger, and later deal with the threat on her own. At the top, Lewis is met by a whole group of acquaintances. They note the hero's changed body and praise the hero. Their conversation is interrupted by Adelaide, who has also escaped from the spiritual world. She demands people to get away as far as possible. Lewis doesn't understand how terrifying the demon must be to make his wife so tense, but he doesn't have time to ask about it. Adelaide cleans the house while Lewis reads the news through his phone and is surprised that Joseph's body was not found in the spirit space. From Bob, the hero learns that, as compensation due to the temporary closure of the spiritual space, the Academy will allocate spiritual jasper to each participant. After his wife explains to Lewis the value of spiritual jasper and how to use it, the young man begins to make fun of the demoness and flirt with her. The hero thanks the ferret for the information about the enemy and puts chicken soup in front of him. Despite Lewis's disregard and shameless nature, the ferret admits that he is not a bad person, especially compared to his previous owner. Mark is dissatisfied with the success of the protagonist. He tries to convince his grandfather to entrust the mission to discredit Lewis to another, stronger person, but he is asked to wait for the right moment. The hero goes to the treasury to get the spiritual jasper, where he encounters spiritual pressure from the old guard, which he is incredibly surprised by. Having overcome the initial shock and waited for other participants in the event, Lewis follows the old man inside the vault. The hero watches as others begin to open cubes with spiritual jaspers. Most try to open the vault with brute force and are defeated. Lewis gets 3 options for opening the cube and chooses the one that gives the most points. Using spiritual energy and physical strength, the hero tears open the vault with his bare hands, which inevitably attracts the attention of everyone around him. In response to everyone's shock and the old man's question, Lewis just shrugs. He completed the task in the way that seemed easiest to him, nothing unusual. The spiritual jasper from the first cube did not satisfy the young man. He began to destroy one storage facility after another in search of the most valuable. Other people, unable to open even one cube, decided to follow the hero to pick up a couple of those that Lewis had discarded as unusable. The old guard stops the young man in order to prevent the resulting chaos and allow him to independently choose a reward worthy of his skills. On the advice of the demoness and his attendant, Lewis selects a spiritual jasper that is not high level, but has an impressive ability to unlock the owner's potential. The hero immediately absorbs the properties of jasper, thereby gaining a new skill and delighting in shocking the old guard. Lewis decided to immediately use the acquired skill, activating it and immediately improving it, becoming more and more delighted with the acquisition. Looking at the main character, the old man evaluates his abilities and understands that a great future awaits him. Then Bob suddenly bursts in and tells Lewis to save himself and run away through the emergency exit, because fans of one of the beauties of the academy were already waiting for the main character. But the young man was not intimidated by any fans. On the contrary, he was eager to test his new abilities, even if he became a punching bag. So the team of bullies was already waiting for Lewis near the main exit. They were preparing to avenge their mistress. The main character boldly went out to the bullies. A fat man walked behind him. They were already mentally preparing for battle. The young man did not waste a minute and immediately began to provoke the guys. He had no lack of confidence. The gang leader was angry at the young man's arrogant behavior and immediately rushed to the attack, using his abilities. But Lewis was able to easily parry his opponent's blow, which he was extremely pleased with. Having repelled one attack, Lewis could no longer be stopped. He continued to provoke his opponent by waving a handkerchief in front of him. The commander could not stand such a provocation and immediately called for help. Now the main character has two opponents. His partner immediately used his ability and summoned his super cannon. The guy was so in love with his ability that immediately after using it he began to hug the gun. The main character and Bob were shocked by such sincere love for the ability. Now they began to think about what kind of club this was. Without thinking for long, Lewis decided it was time to attack and rushed forward at his opponent. Using his ability, a flaming fist, the young man caused damage to his opponents. There was a loud sound that made everyone pay attention to the main entrance. The guys were worried about what was happening. The opponents were defeated with one blow, lying on the ground. They did not understand how Lewis defeated them, because recently they had easily beaten him. The main character could have killed them, but at the moment he changed the trajectory of the blow and left them alive, because great people do not remember the actions of the ants. Having finished his speech, Lewis headed back. Bob supported his youngest and praised him for such strength and generosity. The old man, who was watching everything that was happening, was able to see the guy in action, after which he was convinced that Leona had found herself an excellent student. Less than a year has passed since my sister decided to visit her older brother. She is already standing near his dorm and waiting for her brother to return. Entering the yard, she was immediately noticed by the guard ferret. He was aggressive and was already preparing to defend the house. The ferret himself was shocked by his actions. He did not understand at what moment he became a watchdog. The little girl, seeing such a cute animal, immediately began to stroke it and call it a dog, which the yellow ferret was not happy about. Deciding to show the little girl his strength, the ferret released his fangs and began to scream menacingly throughout the street. But the baby quickly calmed the guard dog by releasing her aura, thereby showing that she was much stronger than some pet. The ferret quickly realized his place and immediately rushed to bow at the feet of the new mistress. Now the pet was flexible, the baby calmly stroked him, only inside the ferret was roaring from such injustice. Returning home at night, the main character immediately notices that the front door is open. This worries him greatly, whether a thief has broken into his house. Adelaide also sensed a strong aura in the house and immediately warned Lewis about it. Entering the house, the main character examined all the places, but the baby was already waiting for him, hiding behind the diva along with the ferret. Suddenly the little girl jumped straight into the arms of her big brother. She missed him so much. Lewis was sincerely glad to see his little sister. He gently stroked her head. Adelaide watched all this. She wondered what kind of girl was hugging her husband. The ferret looked at this whole picture and was in a state of shock, because he considered the baby to be the queen of demons. The younger one decided to make her older brother happy. She has news for her. Now she will be homeschooled and live with Lewis. From Lewis's expression, you could tell that he was not very happy about this news, but little brother didn't want to upset his little brother, so he told her that he was happy about it. Hearing this news, the pet got out. He was not particularly happy about this, because now his quiet days would end. Turning her attention to the yellow ferret, the little girl noticed that he wanted to run away. Noticing this, the baby immediately took him in her arms and began to squeeze him, which the ferret was clearly not happy about. Holding the ferret in her arms, the sister noted that her brother's house was very clean. Although he lives alone, does he really look after the house so well? Refusing to believe such a thing, she accused Lewis of taking girls to the house. But Lewis denied everything, and Adelaide, who was watching all this from the spiritual world, just laughed. The little girl believed her brother's words, but warned him to stay away from the girls. The main character understood that he could not refuse his sister's request. Now he would have to meet with Adelaide in secret. Going straight to the kitchen, the little girl began preparing dinner for her brother, humming an unobtrusive melody. Having finished cooking, she presented her culinary works to the elder. Louis was shocked by the baby's abilities. The youngest did not understand why her brother did not start the meal. She was outraged by this, but Louis did not know how to refuse the baby, because he was embarrassed by the appearance of the dishes and he doubted whether the food was edible. The little girl convinced her otherwise. She had already let her pet try one of her dishes. Louis could not refuse the youngest, so he gathered all his will into a fist and started eating. Having tried the dish, the main character was surprised. The taste did not match the appearance, but it turned out to be quite tasty. The ferret watched Louis eat the baby's culinary masterpiece. He did not understand how anyone could eat such a thing, so he began to consider the main character a demon. Louis understands that he doesn't have much money and it's time to find a part-time job, because now he needs to support his wife, sister and dog. Having met Bob on his way, the main character finds out that the fat man is going to get a part-time job and asks for it. Bob could not refuse the young man's request. Now they both go to work. When he got there, it turned out that the fat man was working as a mercenary. Louis was surprised, because he had never been to such places before. Approaching the notice board, the main character immediately grabbed the task with the biggest reward. The fat man was extremely unhappy about this. There was no stopping Louis. He pressed himself against the board and dreamed of becoming a billionaire. Those around him were outraged by the young man's behavior. His screams could be heard throughout the building. Interrupting the protagonist's fantasies, the fat man called the guy to him, and joyful Louis immediately ran to the call. Bob introduced Louis to his team as a mercenary. They called him husband and even had their own fan base. The man in the center immediately introduced himself and extended his hand in greeting. "This is Darren, the head of the husband squad." Louis was not a timid person. He boldly extended his hand to the head of the detachment and shook it. The boss immediately noted the protagonist's abilities, but in order to accept him into the team, Louis must pass an ability rank test. The young man was also interested in how strong he had become since school, so he immediately put his hand to the sphere. Now the main character is not FFF rank, C+ rank, for which Bob congratulated him. Having checked the guy's abilities, the boss was satisfied and accepted him into the squad. One of the squad members was not happy with the leader's decision. He considered Louis a self-confident upstart. Paying attention to the dissatisfied guy, the main character notices that he is familiar with this face. But the boss immediately changes the topic of conversation and introduces all members of the squad. In their group there is a healer, Amanda, Clinton. He has ranged attacks. Everyone introduced themselves except Eric. He is the deputy head of the mercenary team, as well as the older brother of one of the four beauties of the academy. Louis immediately remembered the moment and he held an aqua disco in the spiritual spring. The older brother of one of the girls was angry with this behavior of the guy. He was ready to kill him. Everyone was shocked by the angry Eric. They could not even think that he loved his little sister so much. Noticing this, Eric began to justify himself. Because all men are assholes, he is the only good one. Eric believed that the test to determine rank was not enough, so he offered a fight. If Louis wins, he will become a full member of the team. A fat man standing nearby warns Louis that his opponent is rank B. And here again a system window appears in front of the main character, which offers 3 options to choose from: ask for forgiveness, teach a lesson, or convince others that you are right. The young man faced a difficult choice, because he could not defeat Eric, so Louis did not yet know what to do. But still, he made a decision. The young man chose the option of apologizing and immediately bowed to Eric so that he would forgive him. Eric was not prepared for such a development of events. Was Louis bowing his head in front of him out of fear? At that moment there was not a drop of pride in the young man, he only begged for mercy. Seeing such a picture in front of him, Eric decided to show mercy and forgive the young man, while Louis at one time received a reward for successfully completing the task. After the task was completed, the main character sincerely thanked Eric for his mercy. So sincere that everyone watching opened their mouths. No one expected Louis to thank Eric so heartily. Louis's unexpected blow took the guy by surprise, but logically, the main character defeated Eric, which means he is now a full-fledged member of the team. After the victory, the main character immediately went to the crowd of girls to seduce them. Adelaide was unhappy with this and decided that she would punish her unfaithful husband upon his return. The time has come for the mission, the boss announced it to his team, and now they all move forward together. Lewis keeps up with Eric and continues to imitate him, thereby increasingly straining their relationship. Their mission was to find the missing in this dilapidated and abandoned estate. A group of mercenaries needed to drive out or kill rank E cannibal monsters. Everyone was ready for the mission and listened carefully to the captain. The head announced that Eric should distribute the communication means to his partners. Lewis did not worry about the monsters, because he could kill them with one blow. By handing over the device, Eric showed how unpleasant the main character was to him, and the guy turned out to be vindictive. So, our heroes set off. The head is the first to enter the estate, followed by his team. Each of the group members was assigned to a specific area of the estate, while Lewis got a corridor. Having gone to explore the corridor, the main character notices that the temperature in this place is much lower than outside, and the spiritual pressure is as strong as in the demonic area. Adelaide unexpectedly appeared to warn the protagonist that the information was incorrect. The estate was inhabited by A, D and C rank spirits. Suddenly, Lewis felt a chill run down his spine. Behind him there were a couple of monsters who were about to attack him. But the young man even liked this attack from the monsters from behind. The girls with long necks pressed themselves against the guy, which only made him excited. Seeing her beloved in this state, Adelaide took out her weapon and prepared to attack the monsters. Lewis stopped his woman, because he wanted to enjoy this torture a little more. The girls are monsters and immediately realized that the guy liked this kind of torture and began asking the handsome guy questions about which of them he liked best. And once the guy had a choice, the system was activated. Now he was given 3 options to choose from: choose the left one, choose the right one, or take everything. Lewis, like a real man, chose both of them and was already preparing to turn off the lights. Adelaide was so outraged by her husband's behavior that she was ready to kill him herself. But our hero doesn't sleep with just anyone, so he pushed the girls away, because his heart and body belonged to only one. The demoness did not know how to react to the behavior of her beloved, but Lewis boasted about what a faithful and well-mannered young man he was. The girls were unhappy that they were rejected, so they decided to take revenge on the main character. Vengeful monsters in the guise of girls began to call on their suitors and evil spirits crawled out of the ground. The hero did not understand what the hell was happening before his eyes, but Adelaide did not relax. She immediately realized that it was time for the couple to leave. The monsters noticed Adelaide and Lewis running away and immediately rushed in pursuit of them. All the group members had already gathered in the living room. They were discussing going around the estate. None of them found anything. But Clinton noted that the temperature in the house is much lower than it should be, which means someone is hiding here. Bob also noted that everyone had gathered except Lewis. He began to worry about the guy. Suddenly, Amanda heard someone screaming coming from the corridor. Lewis runs into the living room followed by a herd of monsters. The group members were not prepared for such a sudden appearance of the main character. They did not understand what kind of creatures were running after him. A whole army of demons was chasing the young man. They wanted to punish him for such a cruel refusal. The guys were shocked by such a herd of monsters. Now their heads were filled with only one question: where did they come from? One of the demons immediately began an attack, and some thick liquid poured out of her mouth. This thick liquid, once on clothes, corroded them, which Lewis was incredibly happy about. But the liquid affected not only the girl, but also the guys. The embarrassed guys covered their bare spots. The boss decided not to be ashamed of his body and, straightening his shoulders, he gave a motivational speech to get his team to gather their thoughts. After such a speech, the mercenaries gathered and headed straight towards the herd of demons. Using his ability, the Phoenix, the boss attacked one of the demonesses. At this time, Bob, coming from behind, grabbed the second demoness. Sitting on the floor and covering her chest with her hand, Amanda could not calmly watch her comrades fight. She wanted to help them. Adelaide, standing next to her and holding Lewis, could not calmly look at the half-naked Amanda. She asked her husband to throw something on the girl, but the young man wanted to enjoy the view of the beautiful girl a little more. The wife was outraged by this behavior of her beloved, so using her strength, she decided to instantly bring him to his senses. Using her power, Adelaide controlled the protagonist's body, so he immediately threw a cloth over the girl to cover herself. After half an hour of fierce battle, the demonesses were defeated so that they could not escape. they were tied up with a special technique. Bob was not embarrassed that demons were sitting in front of him. He even managed to hit on the girls. Amanda approached Louis and was flattered by the guy's concern. She wanted to thank him. And she found the best way to thank the young man by kissing him on the cheek, which made the main character feel embarrassed. Bob noticed how the main character blushed. He praised him for taking care of his partner and was even a little jealous. Eric didn't like Louis's self-confidence. He was filled with envy, because this time he wasn't the center of attention. Standing in front of the guys, the boss breaks the news. The level of the task has been increased, and therefore the reward has become higher. The main character was so happy about this news that he completely forgot about all his problems. Finally the night watch arrived. They will take the demonesses and also evaluate their strength. Suddenly, as one of the night watch workers turns to his superiors, Louis hears a familiar name and notices a familiar silhouette, which he recognizes as his older sister. Getting out of the car, Eva appeared in front of him. He hadn't seen his older sister for a long time, so he didn't recognize her right away, and he was also pleasantly surprised by her figure. Entering the estate, Eve continued the dialogue with her brother. She was pleased that Louis had become a mercenary. Having finished the dialogue, Eva immediately went back, but Louis called out to her. He was not happy with such a cold dialogue with his sister. Louis continued the dialogue with his sister and began asking her about how he could become stronger and get into the night watch. Eve was dissatisfied with such directness of her brother. She immediately put him in his place, saying that he was still very far from joining the night watch. The main character was upset, but accepted his sister's words. He will not abandon his goal and someday join the night watch. Noticing that her words upset her brother, Eve told him that he had a chance, because soon the night watch would conduct autumn tests. If Louis takes first place in them, it will be a good investment in his future. When leaving, the sister gave the youngest an incomprehensible small wooden box. Louis happily accepted it, although he was surprised by the sudden gift. Eva returns to work, and Louis happily waves goodbye to her and wishes her good luck in her work. Bob informs everyone that their work is over and they can go home. Returning home, Louis found a very interesting picture. The little girl was playing with her pet and dressed him up in a dress. Barely holding back laughter at what was happening, the main character showed the little girl a gift from her older sister. The little girl puffed out her cheeks because she also wanted to receive a gift from the eldest, but in the end all the honors went to Louis. The little girl was not offended for long. She was impatient to open the gift, so she urged the elder to open the box. Having opened the box, Louis and the little girl saw spiritual jasper in it, which the youngest immediately offered to absorb for her brother. Sitting down on the sofa and concentrating, Louis began to absorb the power of the spiritual jasper. The little girl watched intently as her brother absorbed power. She was amazed that the elder could absorb spiritual jasper so easily. Having absorbed all the energy, Louis acquired new strength, absolute protection, and now he could cover his entire body with spiritual energy. The next day, after classes, Louis immediately went to his mentor to inform her that he wanted to take part in the fall test. Having heard such great news, the guys immediately supported the young man and decided to start training together. Suddenly, two beautiful girls burst into the class. They immediately began to throw claims at the main character. Louis recognized one of them. The girl with blue hair was called Alice. The main character had already seen her naked body in the spiritual source. Louis realized that the girls were serious and he was about to get it, so he pretended to be Bob, which the guy was clearly not happy about. But the girl was not deceived. She immediately recognized Louis and took out her whip, launching an attack. But the main character was not afraid of such an attack. He used his ability, absolute defense, and repelled the blow. The girl was unhappy with how easily the guy was able to repel her attack. Meanwhile Louis only continued to tease the madam. Suddenly Leslie intervened in this fight. She was not going to offend Louis, because he is part of their group. The girls immediately began a fierce battle. Using their abilities, they fought so fiercely, as if they hated each other. Bob explained to Louis that they had been rivals since their freshman year, so they hated each other. Having learned this, the main character began to support Leslie. He began shouting supportive words and dancing. Bob was shocked by his friend's frisky behavior. The girl standing next to him also did not understand why the guy behaved this way. Suddenly, an unfamiliar man in a robe entered the fray. The girls did not recognize who it was and were stunned by such an appearance. Louis also could not understand what kind of man appeared right in the middle of the battle. Adelaide, who was standing behind the main character, felt a demonic aura. Alice immediately guessed that this unknown person, a member of the afterlife, approached her and the stranger praised her for her knowledge. A member of the afterlife abyss came just for Alice, so using his abilities, he grabbed the girl. The friend could not leave Alice in trouble, she immediately struck the stranger. Alice is freed, having come to her defense. The girl will not allow a member of the afterlife to take her friend. The afterlife is a demonic organization. Some of its members are fallen demonic creatures, most of them are people who are ready to help demons for the sake of power. The stranger was not going to give up, he decided to use his special skill, the snake's lair, to defeat his opponents. Numerous attacks continued to fall from the sky like hail, the guys dodged them and at the same time tried to retreat. Superpowers department, but he couldn't get through and call for help, because there was no connection. The stranger, who was watching what was happening, only laughed at the group of guys. His power not only attacked, but also closed them in space. The main character was not scared by the enemy, he continued to make fun of him, filming everything on his phone. The villain could not help but succumb to provocations. Having become angry, he no longer wanted to grab Alice, but to kill Lewis. The girls didn't understand what Lewis was trying to achieve, but a plan was already forming in his head. And again, a system appears before our hero. It offers 3 options to choose from: escape, betray the academy, or fight a member of the afterlife. This time the young man thought about it, because the option of betrayal gave a life pill as a reward, a difficult choice. While Lewis was thinking about what to choose, Alice was caught by a member of the afterlife. The stranger was about to kidnap the girl, when Leslie intervened and prevented him from doing so. Suddenly, the main character began to play the fool and call the stranger a snake master, to which the man in the robe was surprised. The girls were not only surprised, but also unhappy, because now in their eyes Lewis turned out to be a traitor. But Lewis did not pay attention to the reaction of his comrades, he continued to crawl in front of the snake master. The stranger was amused by the behavior of the protagonist, he did not think about why the hero switched sides so quickly and immediately accepted him as one of his own. And since they are now on the same side, the snake master asks the young man to drag Alice to him, to which Lewis immediately agrees. But the main character was waiting for only one thing, when the system notified him that the task was completed. Having waited for this and received the reward, Lewis immediately betrayed his new comrade in arms and struck him. The girls arrived in a state of shock, they no longer understood what was happening. But the young man only laughed it off. Then the girls realized that Lewis was only pretending to deliver a sudden blow. Guys like him have nothing to do with villains, because the only place Lewis will enter is the night watch. But the snake master is not yet defeated, having risen to his feet, he continues to attack the young man from behind. Adelaide notices the sudden attack and warns her husband. Thanks to his wife, Lewis remains unharmed. Having used his ability, the dark snake, the gang member continues to attack Lewis. Will the main character be able to cope with such a strong blow? But our hero is not so simple, he uses his skill, absolute defense, and easily reflects the enemy's skill. The snake master has not given up yet, he continues to use his skills and attack Lewis. Finally, help arrived, the teachers came to deal with the offender. After standing on the sidelines for a short time, Leona almost immediately began to repel the intruder's attack. The students were sincerely worried about the teacher, because it seemed to them that the snake had completely swallowed up the teacher. But Leona crushed the snake that attacked her with such force that after the explosion not a trace remained of the snake. The attacker was outraged that he could not even leave a scratch on the red-haired woman. The mentor was not going to stop there, so she continued the fight with the enemy, using the summoning technique. The gang member was also not going to give up. Using the infernal flame technique, he continued the attack. But everything was in vain, the enemy could not even touch the mentor, he was defeated by one of her attacks. After the fight, Lewis approached his mentor and, having taken a closer look at her pet on his shoulder, he compared it to a monkey. The pet did not like this comparison, for which the young man received a slap in the face. But Bob, who watched all this, said that the main character was lucky to get off so easily, because the mythical beast summoned by the teacher could have fried him. After the teacher defeated the attacker, they tied him up and wanted to throw him away, but the enemy was not going to tell them anything. Lewis and Leona were serious in their intentions, so armed with whips, they began their harsh interrogation. The guys watching the interrogation were amazed at how much the student looked like his teacher, a duo of demons, as they called them. But just as the hostage was about to tell everything, an incomprehensible force pierced his heart and he died without uttering a word. Demoness appeared before them and pierced the hostage's heart. Louis didn't know who appeared in front of them, but he could clearly sense a strong demonic aura. Leona recognized the demoness. She was number 1 in the afterlife. Realizing this, the mentor immediately took an attacking stance and prepared for the attack. The demoness asked her not to stress so much, because today she only came to kill Louis. Louis didn't want to die at all, but he couldn't do anything while the demoness was calmly dragging him by the collar. Everyone rushed to protect the main character. They could not allow their partner and student to be kidnapped. But the young man was already being sucked into the demoness portal. He prayed for salvation, but no one could help him at that moment. Having moved Louis to a place unfamiliar to him, the demoness calmly threw him to the ground, because even if he screamed, no one would hear him. Having brushed himself off and stood up, the hero noticed that he was on a rocky area, or more specifically, on the top of a mountain. Louis did not want to die without a fight, so he immediately began to attack the demoness with his power, but as soon as he began to activate his ability, nothing happened. The demoness has already sealed his soul and spiritual world. Now the main character is absolutely helpless. All this time, the demoness closely watched the battle. Seeing how Louis fought, she realized that he would become a more interesting test subject than Alice. While locked up, Adelaide was very worried about her husband, because in this situation she did not help protect him. The demoness invited Louis to accept demonic blood. She thirsted for his strength and potential. And again, a system window appears in front of the main character, which offered him 3 options to choose from: refuse, accept, or find an opportunity to escape. The young man made a decision and chose the first option, to refuse. He would rather throw himself off a cliff than accept demonic blood. But the demoness was not going to retreat. She decided to force-feed Louis demonic blood. Hearing this, the main character immediately sat down on his knees and did not object to the demoness anymore. The demoness was very pleased with the guy's obedience. She liked obedient boys. For such obedience, Louis was given a reward. She not only allowed him to absorb demonic blood, but also kissed him. The main character was shocked by such actions of the demoness, and he did not feel any changes after accepting demonic blood. Finally, Leona found them. The demoness was not ready for Louis's savior to appear so quickly, but she managed to do everything she wanted. Therefore, as soon as Leona appeared, she immediately created a portal and left. The fat man was very worried about his friend, so as soon as they met, she immediately began to examine him. Louis was flattered by his mentor's praise, because he was able to detain the demoness before the guys arrived. This time the main character returned home earlier than usual, and even with gifts, he was met by a little girl with a pet, who was incredibly happy about the return of her brother. After what happened, the young man felt bad, so he immediately went to his room to rest. His sister was not upset by this, she only wished him to have a good rest. When Louis took the demonic blood, he didn't feel anything, but now his body was engulfed in acute pain. Adelaide noticed that her husband was not feeling well, so she immediately appeared to find out his condition. The demoness fed him a potential catalyst to cultivate his strength, but Louis is not ready for this now. Realizing this, Adelaide suggests dividing the power into 2, for this they need their energies together. The next morning, when Louis woke up on the bed with Adelaide, he felt great. Having gone downstairs, the main character was already greeted with breakfast by the baby. Each time her cooking skills became better and better, but the ferret did not think so. While his brother was eating porridge, the little girl told him that last night she heard strange sounds from his room, as if he was fighting with someone. Louis was not ready for such questions. The girl continued to ask strange questions, but the main character only laughed it off and tried to change the subject. Realizing that he would not be able to get away from the interrogation so easily, he decided to simply run away. Arriving at the academy, the elders were already looking for him. They greeted him sweetly and also began to ask him about the previous night. But Louis convinced them that he was pure and innocent. He was shocked that the guys were watching him so closely. But the guys didn't believe the words of the main character, because last night there was a guy who walked past his house and recorded indescribable sounds. Now the whole academy is discussing it. Louis was outraged by such rumors and immediately threw the phone at the fat man, because he did not want to admit that it was true. The lesson began, and Leona immediately announced that there was less than a month left before the start of the autumn test. She had already signed them all up for one team. She carefully handed out a training schedule to them, which she personally compiled for each of them. Louis was a little shocked when he saw his schedule. The other guys were also not mentally prepared for such harsh training, so each of them arrived in a slight shock. Leona did not allow them to rest. Harsh training exhausted the guys so much that they could not get up after them. A month and a half later, the time had come for the autumn tests. Our heroes, drooping, were already standing near the stands and preparing for severe trials. They could not even think that they would live to see this day, with such harsh training from Leona. The mentor noticed that her team of students was not cheerful, so she sternly supported them with a motivational speech. Approaching the teacher, the guys asked about the name of the team. Their team was called Bassillard, and the captain of the team was Louis.